We've got a car in here, and the interesting thing is it came in here with one request, and after a test drive, I looked at the owner and I said, look, you got a gorgeous car, but what you're asking for is about 10th on the list of what you need, so let's actually talk about what you do really need. So Chris right now is the project lead for this. This is a stunning 66 Mustang. Chris, what do you think of the paintwork and the overall fit and finish of this car?
It's a really nice car. We see our share of Mustangs, and
a lot of them aren't that. So I'm going to change what he said. I don't think it's a really nice car. I think it's a stunning 66. Most of the fastbacks that are out there, you've seen your share of raw fastbacks. They look great from 50 feet, but you get 49 feet from them and you're like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
So this is a car you can be 3 feet from and it's still gorgeous. So what's interesting is the man walked into my office. He talked to Melissa and said, I'd like to chat with Dan, and normally Melissa turns people away, but this guy, he convinced Melissa, and so the guy comes in. And he says, look, I really do want you to work on my car. And he gave me like this ridiculous little tiny list. And it was some electrical work and a couple little things like that. And I said, I have a hard time bringing a car in for, $500 worth of work, because I spend $1,000 just doing database entries and photographs and customer meetings and everything else. So I said, it's hard for me to make any money if I spend $1,000 to bring in a car that I make $500 and work on. And he goes, well, how about this? How about we just drive it? And I said, great. So he made an appointment, and 30 days later, he brings back this car. And I looked at it, and the first thing I noticed was, okay, this guy loves this car.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he loves this car. And has taken exceptional care of it. So that was a big part of what convinced me to consider working on this car. And so, the fit and finish, the paint work, and so we're obviously going to be very careful. Not one scratch will be added to this car. It is immaculate, and things close well. So nice car, but then I took it out for a drive with him, and I was actually flabbergasted. It rattled going down the road, it shook, the brakes were horrible, the acceleration wasn't good, the carburetor had flat spots in it, the brakes, they were just incredibly soft.
Well, the brakes would lock up if you just checked to see if they were there. The back brakes were locking up terrible.
Right, but the front brakes weren't working, so it had this. Yeah. So anytime you've got back brakes locking up, so you hear this sound, but the car barely slows down, and that's usually an indication that all of your bias is to the rear, there's nothing coming up front, and the front brakes are what do 70% of your stopping. And so I drove this car, and I said, all right. I said, do you like the way this car shifts? And he said, no. I said, do you like the way it stops? And he said, no. I said, do you like the noises this car makes going down the road? He said, no. So I said, all right, so can we agree to sort of forget the little cosmetic things you're asking me to do, and can we focus on what this car needs? Now, man agreed, right? He wholeheartedly agreed.
Yeah.
So you're going to do something to this car that I actually have a little bit of a moral dilemma with.
Yeah.
Right here. So what are you doing with that?
Well, here's the thing, because it pains me to put a Chevrolet part on a Mustang.
Wait a second. Why does it pain you to put a Chevy part? Because you put a lot of Ford parts on Chevrolets.
Oh, yeah.
You put 9 inches on damn near every car that comes through here.
That's how we make them go fast.
Okay, so all right, he's going to give me a hard time. So we do regularly, look, Dodge had a Dana 60, which was the greatest differential like ever, but they're expensive.
Yeah.
The Ford 9 goes on lots of cars. Chevy small blocks ended up going in Fords and Dodges
they go in
all through the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
So what do you hate about this pump?
Well, the system that we looked at, the Borgensen, because we always try to go with the best steering we can buy. And when we looked at the kit to convert this car, it put a Chevy power steering pump on it. Okay. So herein lies the problem, is it gives me terrible heartburn. So after painstakingly combing over there, we had a power steering car to begin with.
Right.
And we were looking at a manual to power conversion, and we needed a power to power conversion. When I looked at their power to power conversion, guess what it uses?
Would it be a GM Saginaw pump?
No, it uses the power to power uses the genuine Ford pump.
Oh, the power to, it does, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it already has the brackets installed, and it saved us $200 or $300.
Okay.
Using the power to power, and it was the right because it had a air conditioning power steering unit on the car.
Okay. Which air conditioning changes power steering pumps because real estate changes on the front of the engine.
That's right. And it had a service port here, you know, to check the fluid to clear the compressor that doesn't exist on this car. So I got a genuine Ford part.
So you're telling me it's going back with a Ford power steering pump?
It's going back with a Ford power
I
steering
did. Wait
pump.
a second. So you managed because
you know it.
I'm learning this right now. So we were going to have to switch out this Ford, and for what it's worth, Ford kept kind of old school looking pumps. I thought the Chevy pump looked more modern, even in the same day, right?
It sort of does, yeah.
So this very old school power steering pump, we were going to have to change out with the GM Saginaw, but you figured out a way to keep a Ford part on a Ford.
Yes,
all
I
right.
did.
And that's because
Yes, I did.
some people believe that Chris likes Ford.
I love my Fords. I really
Okay.
do. Yeah, you know what I mean? My grandfather was a Ford man. Everything he had was Ford, including the tractor and the lawnmower and everything.
All right. So let's just talk in general. What are we doing on this car? Where are the brakes? Where's the brake drum? Is it? I know, because this car came in and we had all sorts of issues, but it's an original manual drum brake car. So you've got this little single reservoir brake master. Mm-hmm. And what's the problem with a single reservoir master?
If it fails or gets a leak anywhere, you lose all the brakes.
All at one
front
time.
and rear.
Yeah, you lose everything.
All the brakes.
And that's bad.
And modern cars, since about 1960 something.
This was the last year for single reservoir. In 1968, it became federal law. They had to have a safety brake backup.
That's right. So now they're dual. So there's basically two master cylinders in one. So if one fails, the other one, the chances of them both failing simultaneously are really slim. And that's why. So we're trying to upgrade the safety part of it while we have the chance.
So we're going to a 67 K code master cylinder.
That's right. Master cylinder and brakes, and calipers and.
So can you put power brakes on a 66 Mustang? Let's start. Did Ford ever put power brakes on a 66 Mustang? Why?
There's not really room behind the shock tower.
They forgot to leave any room there because what was a 66 Mustang? And this is the part that Chris is going to hate. Where did a 66 Mustang come from? 66 Falcon.
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Car.
It was a Falcon.
And Ford just didn't want to spend all the R&D when they had taken a car, a Falcon, and made it beautiful, which they had. That was a home run, right?
Right.
I mean, when Ford made a Falcon into a Mustang, everybody went, that was genius. And second only to the Model T, it was the most successful program in Ford's history, right?
Yes.
So, brilliant move. They didn't do the engineering. You can't put power brakes on a 66. Now, are there ways to do it, though?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways to do it.
Ford never figured it out.
None of which I really like.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Now we have come up with a couple of creative solutions, and we do them all the time. And
they work
well.
well.
They work well.
Really well.
And they work well.
So this man opted not to do it, right? So we're going to go with the K-Code 67 dual master, 4-piston front brakes, but again, K-Code Ford, basically what Shelby would have used on a fastback, right?
That's right. He could go to any auto parts store
and
get the pads to replace them or the rotors to replace them. So, you know, that's part of the reason why we did that. And like I said, we're upgrading the brakes into a safer brake. And then the steering, because these cars had, the shaft is solid from the box all the way to the wheel.
The steering shaft.
The steering shaft. And when you crash one of these, there's no give there.
What was the last year for the non-safety column?
67.
66. 67 was the safety column.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so we're putting that style back in it where it has a joint in the middle. It has a place to flex and a fold. So in the event of a hard front end crash, the steering will fold up in this, whereas the original would probably
goes right through your heart.
Yeah. I mean, it would tattoo Mustang on your chest
as it's going through and taking your heart and shoving it through the back of your body.
Yeah.
So 66 is an interesting year. I don't know who initiated it in Congress, but basically in 67, there were two major safety improvements. I probably was, you know. The only good thing the man ever did was get rid of the
Corvair.
The Corvair, the
Unsafe
world's
at any
worst car.
speed.
Yeah. Unsafe and ugly. Well, actually, I thought they were pretty, but they were just. And this isn't a bash. Although it is fun to bash the Corvair. It is just fun.
The Corvair guys hate us.
Yeah, they did. Oh, they hate me. I had the Corvair club in here on a Friday, and there's 50. They're just packed in there. And they said, is there any car you won't work on? I have no idea who these folks are. And I said, yeah, a Corvair, because it's the world's worst car. And I got this look from the crowd, and I said, what did I say? And they said, we're the Corvair Club. I said, sorry, guys. I'm going to stand by what I said. God bless you for saving the Corvairs, but don't bring them here. So in 67, Ford went, just like General Motors, dual master and the safety steering column.
That's right.
So are we taking away from the originality of this car to put in a different steering column and a different steering gearbox?
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
And how do you feel about that?
But for good reason.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I feel like that it's one thing just to grab some chrome part and stick it on your car because you think it's shiny.
Yeah.
That's not my thing. And I really love the original old cars, but I also don't want to, I don't want to pass on a disease to anyone. And I don't
just because it's original.
Just because I was their dad. No.
Okay.
I would like to give someone a really good car that they're really going to enjoy, because if they enjoy it, they'll drive it and they'll love it, and the next generation will love it like they love it.
That's right. Pass it on to their kids.
That's right.
So basically, this car is an interesting story. It came in for a couple. It sounded like there were marbles in it. So.
Yeah.
In it, so we are doing an upgrade
with K-code.
Factory K-code Ford 9-inch. The K-code brakes, the Borgeson steering box, which means we're going to have actual power steering, because what did a 66 Mustang have on it?
Manual steering.
Well, it had power assist, right? You could get the power steering today.
None of it's usable.
Yeah, it's
none of it. Not one single piece.
I mean, it leaks more than grandma at a nursing home. All right, it's this car needs Depends. So we're gonna fix the leaks, add a more responsive power steering. Are we gonna get 1400 psi? How many psi power steering are we going to?
Well, we're still running on the Ford.
Okay, so we're going to go with a 700.
However, we are getting a 14-to-1 quick ratio box.
Okay, all right.
So the steering input, you're not going to have to turn it half the wheel. Now you'll turn a quarter of the wheel.
All right.
You know what I mean? So it'll be a better performing setup.
So I'm looking forward to driving this car, because when I got in it, I thought, my God, if this thing drives as well as it looks, we got nothing to do here. And then I drove it and realized that this car was unfortunately all about looks and not enough about the mechanics. And so we get to take care of the side that nobody cares about, that nobody sees, which is the greasy, oily bottom of the car. But when we're done with it, this car is going to be just so much fun to drive, because it's going to steer better, it's going to accelerate better, it's going to perform better, the carburetor is going to be better. The front end, we're going to align it after we rebuild the front end. This car is going to be just a much better car. And to me, that's even more important than the paint.
Yeah, and we go back with a radial tire spec because everything runs radial tires.
Yeah.
But all the specs back then were for bias.
That's right.
So
Chris knows how to change what an alignment machine tells him to do into what the car needs him to do.
Yeah,
So-
radial tires.
We've got a video to go deep onto that.
Yeah. Now, we do have a video that explains about radial and bias ply and the difference between the two.
Yeah.
But what most people don't understand is that the alignment specs are considerably different. And through the years, we have sort of figured out, what works really well and what doesn't work well.
Yeah.
And I can tell you one thing. You look up a 67 GTO and a 68 or 69 GTO. One was factory bias and one was factory radial. And look at the difference in the alignment specs. It's considerable.
Yeah, and yet the cars are virtually identical.
And the cars are identical.
Yeah, yeah. So I like this car because it is so beautiful to look at, but it was so bad to drive, and now it'll drive as well as it looks. So,
It will.
we'll be back in touch, and I hope you meet the owner. Great dude, Emmanuel.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
And when I called him today and sort of told him some of the things we were going to do, he got very excited. He said, "Do it." And so we're all over it, and I want you to meet this guy because I think you're going to love him as much as you love his car. And folks, if you've got any recommendations, or if you want to bitch and gripe about us putting a Borgeson box in this and converting it from power assist to power steering, let us know why. And if you've got a good point, I'll bring that up to the owner when we deliver his car and let him know, here's what someone thinks. But it's got to be a relevant point other than, I suck and my mother fed me worms. I'll let him know that, but that's not a relevant point. So anything else you need to add? All right, let's get back to work because it's almost a weekend.
Yeah.
Have a good one, folks.
Yep. See y'all.